I were talking about a little bit ago what a legend is. Do y'all know what a legend is? Ava, tell us again what a legend is.
A legend is a story that is not real, but people tell it anyway.
Right. And it's usually passed down from, one family to the next, to the next, to the next. Well, that's what this story is based on. This story is based on a legend from the Ukraine and Poland and the Middle East. And it's called The Spider Who Saved Christmas.
We did do a Christmas legend.
We did. We sure did.
So this is a Christmas spider.
This is a Christmas spider. Okay, first let me ask you this. Who can tell me one, let's talk about the story of when Jesus was born. Tell me something you know about when Jesus was born.
Christmas! His birthday was on Christmas.
Okay. Okay, what else?
He was born in a manger and with his mother Mary and his earthly father Joseph.
Right. Now, what happened?
Mary at church.
Right. Now, what happened a while after baby Jesus was born? Do you remember?
Wise men.
After that.
Kings.
After that.
You went to Egypt?
There you go. That's where this story picks up. When Mary and Joseph and baby Jesus were on their way to Egypt. Why were they going to Egypt?
To get away from King Herod.
Right, because what was he going to do?
Kill all the babies.
Kill all the babies. Why was he going to do that? Do you remember?
Because to kill the new king.
Because he thought, because somebody told him that there was going to be a new king and it was a baby, right? And he said, I'm just going to kill all the babies and that way I'll make sure.
Age of 2 or 3.
Two or three and younger. Okay, so that's where we are in this story. In the days of Herod, the king of Judea, Mary, her husband Joseph, and the baby Jesus fled to Bethlehem by night, bound for the land of Egypt. I'm going to show it to you. I'm going to show it to you.
Easy, come sit back in your seat.
Okay, don't get in it.
Are you ready to listen? Izzy, you ready? Weary from their journey, they sought refuge in the caverns of the hill country. What does refuge mean?
Shelter.
Shelter, that's right.
I have a door.
Easy, come sit back down, okay?
So they were trying to find shelter in the hill country. And as they entered a cave, behold, a great spider trembled at the child's cry. The sound vibrated through her golden web, filling Nephila with wonder. Her name was Nephila. She scampered to the corner of the silk where a sack of eggs, her future, hung. They were safe, swaddled in the golden strands she had spent hours knitting about them. She peered down at the fascinating strangers below. So she was looking down at Mary and Joseph and baby Jesus.
I want to see the spider. I want to see the spider. Mama said the seat in the seat. There's Mary.
Right.
I love it, Mary.
The woman, cradling the babe in her mantle, reclined beneath Nephila's silken canopy. The man with kind eyes lifted his lantern, staring into the darkness outside the cave. We can't stay here, Mary, he said in a soft voice. Herod's men are coming. For he had been warned in a dream that King Herod sought to destroy the child. Jesus won't be safe until we reach Egypt. Mary nodded gently, kissing the head of her babe. Fear not, Joseph, fear not.
What does fear not mean?
Means don't be afraid. be afraid.
I want to see the golden web. I want to see the golden. How does it be golden? From the...
Because it's from a golden orb spider. It's a special kind of spider.
Are they rare?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Possibly.
Nephila dropped on a line of webbing to get a closer look at the child who seems to glow with his own radiance. Joseph's eyes turned hard when he spotted the dangling visitor above Mary. "Be still, they're spiders," he spat out. He slashed at Nephila with his staff. As she recoiled, Joseph ran his staff through the web, ripping the two main lines. The golden-backed spider retreated into the shadows and laid her body protectively over her sack of children. "Leave it, Joseph," Mary said. "They're dangerous." He lifted the lantern, seeking the spider lurking in the dark. As he raised the staff to strike the spider and clear what was left of the webbing, Mary took hold of his staff. "All are here for a reason, Joseph. Let it be." But I can understand why Joseph thought he needed to get rid of it, can't you? Because he thought it might bite,
Easy, come sit
bite
down,
them.
please.
I see it. Even when it's close.
Now, at the hum of the woman's voice, Nephila relaxed, but she did not dare leave the shadows. She rubbed her two front legs together, wondering how she would ever repair the shredded web. "Rest, Joseph." Mary patted the ground beside her. So Joseph lay down next to the child and threw his cloak over the three of them. And behold, the wails of anguish and the final cries of babies floated through the night. Because what was happening outside and not too far from where they were? What was happening to the babies?
They were all getting killed.
They were all getting killed, so they could hear the cries of and probably the cries of the mamas and daddies too. Nephila stiffened at the sound of the wails on the wind. "Poor children," said Joseph. "The soldiers are close." "Dim the light," Mary whispered. "I'm sorry we're in this horrible place," he told her, snuffing out the lantern. "We are so exposed." "It's where we're meant to be. There's beauty even here," she said. And she looked up at Nephila's web, touching Joseph's hand. "There's beauty and love." "Pray for our safety," he said, closing his eyes. Mary lightly moved her lips. Only the faraway shrieks disturbed the cave's silence. So they're getting ready to go to sleep. And Mary's praying for their safety.
I want to see.
Easy.
The spider is my favorite. Yeah, it's a pretty one. I love the spider's face.
Nephila moved to the tattered edge of her silk. Taking advantage of the stillness, she began to spin a new web. How would she ever reattach the ripped drape to the faraway wall? It would take hours, days perhaps. A shaft of moonlight suddenly cut into the cave. As Nephila turned toward the light, a warm gust of wind carrying the sweet scent of berries blew over her. It swirled about the cavern, and she felt herself rising slightly. The wispy main lines of her web floated up to the ceiling and stretched to the far wall of the cave, as if it had never even been disturbed. The spider warily walked the length of the silk to the far cave wall, testing the strength of her new lines. So the wind blew, and it blew her silk all the way to the other side of the cave where she had been to begin with.
Let's see.
Normally, a spider would crawl up the wall of the cave and jump down to make a web.
Right. Suddenly, the child below cried, sending a vibration through the web. Nephila's egg sac leaped and rippled at the sound. The spider stared down at the child, this Jesus. Never had she felt such a sensation. She instantly understood what she had to do. At the center of her web, she plucked the strings, playing a tune that only spiders could hear. From deep within the crevices of the cave, Nephila's older children scuttled forward by the dozens. Each heard his mother's call and followed her to the cave opening. So she called all her older spider children.
I can't see. Can you get close?
No, I can't get closer.
I can't see.
Yes, you can.
I can't.
She called all of her older spider children.
Nephila hung upside down from the cave's mouth and descended onto a thick golden line until she reached the floor. Then she climbed up the opening and repeatedly fluttered across the center line, leaving a trail of golden threads behind her. So she went up, she climbed up the wall, then she let her thread come down. She climbed up the wall again, let her threads come down. Her framework completed, she plucked on the center strand. At the sound, her children sprang into action, dropping cords of web, weaving their golden silk in a frantic, rhythmic dance.
Like Charlotte the...
Yes,
Web.
yes. See all the little spiders?
Yeah.
They're all helping to spin the web.
They're all helping their mom.
Uh-huh. Now, when it was daybreak and the spider's work was done, the cave mouth was a golden veil of webbing, sealing it completely. So she made a huge web with her spider children that covered up the whole door of the cave, the whole mouth of the cave.
So that's where they get golden silk.
I don't know. Nephila's children returned to the darkness and their personal webs, but not Nephila. Despite the frost dotting the golden curtain, she rested on the outside at the very center of the spider web.
Did the spider web fall?
Didn't fall, it's all across the cave door.
Very
Then why is she sad?
She's not sad. And it came to pass that Nephila felt the approach of 3 soldiers climbing up the hillside. They carried blood-slicked swords and spoke in loud, crude voices. "You two get up there and inspect that cave," one soldier yelled.
Can I have that thing right there?
"Why would a baby boy be in a cave?" another one said. "You have orders. Inspect every dwelling and kill every boy under 2, especially the newborns. That was Herod's command. Go!" So a pair of soldiers climbed up to the cave. The yelling and clanging of armor awoke Joseph, though Mary and Jesus did not stir. In the silence, Joseph fetched his staff and held it high, ready to defend his family. The golden screen blocking the outside world puzzled him. On its thick gauze, he observed the shadow of 2 huge soldiers, one waving a sword. Joseph tightened his grip on his staff. So the soldiers are outside the cave, but the spider web is covering up the entrance to the cave. But he can see the shadow of them through the cave. Outside, the sunlight caused the frosted cobweb to glimmer and sparkle. Nephila wished to return to the shadowy recesses of the cave. She felt so exposed sitting in the daylight. But the child had clearly told her to spin a web over the entranceway and remain there. "What should we do?" one of the soldiers whispered, considering the spider's handiwork. No one entered this cave or the spider web would be broken. You're right, the other soldier glared at Nephila, whose legs were pulsing. There's no newborn in here, except maybe newborn spiders, because the spider web hasn't been disturbed. That thing looks ready to pounce, one of the other soldiers said. I hate spiders. Forget it. Let's go.
We're not supposed to say that.
Everything. No, we're not supposed to say hate, are we? But the soldiers probably didn't know any better. They probably didn't know they weren't supposed to say that. Everything up here is clear, Commander, one of them yelled, and they retreated, running down the hill. Inside the cave, Joseph lowered his staff and fell against the rocky wall, giving thanks for their safety. Nephila watched the soldiers leave, and after a long while, she began to bow on the strings of her web. The light melody awakened Mary. Joseph, where's that music coming from? I hear nothing, he said. Mary marveled at the gossamer gauze and the shadow of Nephila illuminated by the sun. Isn't it beautiful, she said. Soldiers came as you slept. The spiders saved Jesus and us, Joseph said, staring at the web. Yes, all are here for a reason. Mary looked up lovingly at her son and nodded off to sleep. Jesus, Mary, and Joseph remained in the cave another day before taking their leave. They pulled back a piece of Nephila's golden curtain to pass from the cave, and the child's hand grazed the web as they hastened to Egypt. So they had to move it a little bit so they could get out.
But the golden curtain was still there.
Yeah,
What's the golden curtain?
Her spider web. It looked like a golden curtain in the sunshine. And it came to pass that Nephila withdrew into the cave, where she tenderly embraced her egg sac until the last of her spiderlings came forth. Soon after, she repaired the golden curtain at the entryway and spent her days at the center. Basking in the sunlight, she awaited the return of the child with the sweet cry she could never forget. Even today, golden silk orb weavers, the children of Nephila, can be found on their webs in the sun, waiting. And theirs is considered the most precious of all spider silk. So we might have to learn about golden orb spiders.
So all spiders weave silk.
Yes. But there's only certain kinds that they use to weave into cloth that we use.
When is this over?
It's over, but I want to tell you what he says about it at the end. It says, Nephila's gift to the Christ child is remembered all over the world at Christmas time. People from Poland, the Ukraine, and other Eastern Europeans have a tradition of placing spider ornaments on their Christmas trees to commemorate the spider that saved Christmas. So next time you see some twinkling tinsel or a spider ornament lurking in a tree branch, think of Nephila, who though small and feared met divinity and reflected his light as only she could. Like each of us, she was there for a reason. That's a sweet story, isn't it?